There you go.
Great. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you very much. Um, so yeah, basically, um, this is me. I'm this kind of person that wears many hats, like most of us here. I studied many things. Music composition was one of them. And as I started my career as a singer-songwriter, being in a studio with using this professional DAW station was kind of mind-blowing and set me on a path of becoming a producer, sound designer, soundtrack composer. But in parallel, I had this social political training, a very active type of person who deals with social technologies that come from the music world. And through that, we had a couple of projects that we kind of did a very hands on type of approach of creating percussion ensembles with reutilizing materials and stuff like that. So we get to the point that I'm here now at this intersection of music technology, kind of more specifically maker-based technology and education. And so what we kind of I kind of think it's a great idea to start with is this question that motivates us. And my question is something like pretty much this idea of asking, given the inputs and pedagogical support that we have today, what type of, I guess, which type of music experience the digital native people are kind of learning, what type of learning can happen through that. So that's one of the things that kind of motivate me through my research and stuff. And I'd like to share with you a couple of thoughts on that. um, so basically, let me try to get, there you go, I have many screens here. um, let's do this. So um, when I'm trying to kind of get people involved in this, um, I have one kind of very cool question that we start with is, as a professor, I have published and very motivated to evangelize my fellow music education researchers to help to envision and eventually construct a novel approaches to this. And I have always felt intrigued about the word choice. Um, Pretty interesting way of naming the learning facilities that have the sole purpose of stimulating us musically. And I ask this question: how does this naming thing go on like that? We talk about music conservatory, and how does that really get people excited about learning and creating music? So, considering this, I got to a well-humored idea that came to mind. That was, why not try to encourage people, also to kind of think of a place, a better naming, maybe a music innovatory instead of a conservatory. so, so basically, this approach, and I guess this question is my most ambitious plan to kind of foster and always keep this wondrous curiosity flowing for everyone who's touched by art, music, education, technology, and anything that makes you passionate about discovering. So this music innovatory, um, what does this might look like? This is kind of a lifetime quest, and we should do it together. And so this is an ongoing conversation. So drop in at any time, please. And I guess what we could do is, I should firstly say that we could talk about a lot about music, and we could talk also about making and maker world, but many of you already with us. You're watching here, and people already are truly outstanding artists, as we have seen these couple of days. And it's, I guess, I was wondering how could I contribute somehow, and my humble contribution, uh, you know, with something that I think it could be of value, is to talk about our festival's theme within the context of learning, and it's about provoking. It's what I kind of do best to provoke people and to get people excited about expanding the creative spark to anyone, to everyone as much as possible. Um, so I don't bring like sand to the beach here. Could anybody tell me, I mean, hands up or on the chat, who have heard the word constructionism? How does that resonate with you people? Is it something that you're pretty aware of? I'm sure that the people from education know what's it about.
I'm going to Google it.
There you go. Thank you, Cynthia. And
Learning theory and theory of instruction.
there you go. So yeah, so that's a good starting point. And Mace, see, the basic idea is this. Um, I will invite you for this kind of trippy journey, uh, but hopefully fun thought experiment. Uh, so hold on, stick with me, and we'll get there at the music part of it. But first, I'm going to talk about the learning theory because I think that that's something of value. That um, so the idea, as I said, we have to kind of practice some philosophical queries about how we learn. And notice I'm saying the word practice because this is not a talk, it's a dialogue. So share your thoughts, and this is like an essential contribution. So here we go. Imagine that you have like a magical wand that you just, you have this opportunity where you're actually going to um, at once give all this input that you have, the knowledge, the musical knowledge, the engineering, programming, everything you have there, and you're just gonna, you know, magically transfer that to somebody. so, so this is the idea. We we could also go for this Black Mirror type of brain chip implant, but let's not go there. We're a crazy world. So let's stick with the more optimistic, magical wonder metaphor. So what are we talking about here? Um, does the learner simply get to practice to practically do everything in an effortless way? Uh, does she or he reproduce automatically what is transferred to their brain? Um, so I guess you could go anywhere with this, but what I think it's interesting for us to notice is that this particular sci-fi mind experiment is kind of symbolic of everything our that we have, kind of our weird assumptions about the relationship between technology and education. And it's a proxy that makes it explicit that we have kind of been getting it a bit wrong for a long time already. So, for instance, I'm gonna share the screen here with two pictures to see to see how we go about this. You're seeing now this picture of people with books in their hands, kids with books in their hands, and hopefully now you're seeing some other kids with laptops in their hands. Is that right? We're there. So um, so the question is, when you see this, what kind of comes to mind? Just as a general question. What, you know, feel free to just say anything. When you compare these, you juxtapose these two photos. What comes to mind?
Are they learning? What are they learning?
Yes. What I think it's pretty interesting to think about this, and this is interesting to see, is that they both have instruments, and they are looking at their instruments, and Sherry has said here they're not interacting with each other. So that's very, very exactly. And the other thing that it's very impressive is that they both kind of they're using something to learn, and this is interesting to work out with this other picture, and this is a fun one. So so what's going on here, what's this picture about? Anyone?
Automatic learning.
Yeah. So this
Pain.
is
Sherry says pain.
pain, so there you go.
Inception. Loriano says inception.
Yeah, where's my chat going? Let me put it up
Yeah,
here.
it's hard to
There you
do
go.
both.
There you go. So this is kind of a fun thing because see, this is a French kind of illustration that they came up with, this idea of, hey, let's draw me some type of education that's gonna happen 100 years from now, and then they have here the name, the year. This is the year 2000. We've been past that for a while. uh, so this is kind of a crazy situation where you think that the future is just going to reproduce something that we actually just saw on the actual pictures that we just saw. So you have books, and you kind of put them all together, and you have this magical headphone that people are just gonna get all this information, kind of mowed down to your brains, and this kind of says everything that's really wrong about this idea of education. So Emmanuel just said here, learning to be only about remembering, and this is the problem, that we don't actually. It's the idea of transmission, that it really is about, and it's crazy. It's all about this, but it's also about this crazy idea of transmission, where you think that knowledge is going to be transmitted, and this is it's an okay way to think about things, and apparently it's not really okay thing to think about, because that's what I'm saying. It's kind of all wrong for a while now. It's been wrong for a while, and see, what we're talking here is this concept, which very famous Brazilian pedagogue called Paulo Freire has been, you know, doing this since the 60s. And he's talking about this idea of banking. He has this metaphor about banking. And like a bank deposit, we do transfers now, but we did have like an envelope, and we did, we kind of deposited something in a bank. So that's what he calls banking education. And to continue on, for us to get to constructionism. Constructionism is very aligned to that theory, and that it doesn't really, this learning theory doesn't really work in this manner of just transmitting. So this delivery method of education is definitely not going anywhere, and people have caught on to that. See, a great proof of that is the maker movement. The maker movement wouldn't happen if I mean, the maker movement in education wouldn't happen if somehow they didn't think and say, hey, there's a better way of doing this. And the better way of doing this is actually discovering things and practicing. And it's not about content. It's definitely about practice and ways of doing things. So I'm talking here to people who have been doing this for a long time. So so I won't go on to what we mean by ways of doing and practicing, because that's the modus operandi of everybody who's here. So I don't think it's necessary for this feeling to describe very much what we mean, like what Sherry said here: curiosity, discovery. And there's another word that's very used in educational places too, which is tinkering. And tinkering is something that's really cool because it can't really be planned for. It's just something you can't kind of learn to think, to experiment. You have to experiment to learn. It doesn't work the other way around. So so this is the thing. So what we're going to talk about here is a way to do this that is very developed already in theory and educational practices, but it's not really, well, I guess it's not very, it seems to me that people who are actual makers, they don't know that much about this, and it kind of intrigues me. And I think this is something that I'm gonna share the screen again, and this is something that it's in Portuguese, but it's pretty small, so I'm just gonna translate it to you guys. It says, less design thinking and more design doing. uh, so what is this about? This guy is interesting because the guy who posted this, he's a Fab Lab manager, creator, director in a big city in Brazil. So he's pretty a very important guy in the maker movement in Brazil. And this is the kind of thing that he posts. And that kind of showed me something. Hey, it's not that I think I disagree with him. I really like a lot of design doing, that's for sure. That's what I think all of us like to do here. But the idea of kind of putting a bit in a hierarchy and a lesser idea about thinking than doing is probably the reason why most of makers don't know about constructionism. And that's why the name of the talk is like deep constructionism, to try to go deep on that. And I was actually wondering if, so here I asked people, and it's not even deep, it's just the surface. People don't know the term. But this guy is a very, do you guys hear the sound, or do I have to like share with sound?
You have to share with sound.
Yeah,
Yeah, we.
share with
Oh,
sound.
oh, your sound is muted on your computer too.
No, I think I just have to share with sound. Yeah, it's like a 3 minute, a minute clip, but it's a cool one. So let's try share with sound. Here we go.
Well, your little speaker icon was muted too. See it? Just to the right of the play button. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was
Okay.
because it was like doing, publicity. There you go. So here we go.
Oh,
For
I
a
see.
long time, I've dreamed that music should have a very different role in the lives of children and how they learn. It's a strange fact about music that while we expect children to be creative in all other domains, we only expect them to reproduce other people's creative work in music. We expect children to make their own drawings, write their own stories, compose their own poems. We don't expect them to compose their own music. And this is a peculiar state of affairs which might be related to the nature of musical technology. With the computer as a musical instrument, it becomes possible to create a piece of music and hear it independently of your own performance skill.
So you all heard that this man called Seymour Papert? Yes, I guess so. So maybe that's another question. If you don't know constructionism, you might know this guy's name. He's a pretty important guy, and I guess he's a lot of people say because he's been doing this since the 50s, 60s, so he's a lot very important, as known as like a grandfather, as a great grandfather of a maker mindset, I would say. So besides him, as you were seeing here about this computer program, there is this person, small, I guess very young, 90-year-old, 98-year-old person, woman called Jean Bamberger, and she's another generation of the person who actually made this happen. So she kind of made this vision of Seymour Papert in music, because he really liked music, but he didn't really have a lot of talent for it. But she did. Since she was 5, as you could see here, she was a prodigy. And so she met him at MIT, and they developed together this program called Music Logo. We're talking about this end of the 60s here, so it's been a while. And so a lot of the maker music people should know about this, because they kind of develop very interesting things with that. So to kind of wrap up this kind of historical generational thing, I would say that would be really cool for us to see this other guy here, which is Mitchell Resnick. He kind of was a student, and he kept on going with. He actually has this Lego Papert chair in MIT, and he kept on developing this. And people have like 5, 6 generations now. And for us to go deeper on this, I would definitely put this link up, Designing Constructionist Futures. This came out maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, max. And this is everybody who's doing this today and keep doing this in a very interesting way, very different from the guy at the Fab Lab in Brazil who just said, hey, less thinking and more doing. So to kind of wrap up, because we have like so little time today to talk about this, I would kind of keep on going for us to keep talking about this, and like Mitchell Resnick kind of did this 4 Ps going on, and he said the 4 Ps of constructionism, his way of thinking about constructionism is we have to have like projects, we have to have passion, we have to have peers, and we have to play. So these are the 4 Ps. And in project, he actually said we have to have very low barriers to entry, that we said low floors, and this means that you just have to start and do something. Today earlier we had this great educator and her team talking about this. You have to do something that's just easy to start with. So they're very much in the way of a constructionist way of kind of doing this music making in education. And the other idea is about high ceilings. And high ceilings is this idea that you have to kind of program and think about a way to make this thing that you create easy for the person to develop themselves in. So they could go all the way up to heaven because it's a high ceiling. And passion, which is a second P, is very much about wide walls. And this idea about wide walls is this idea that not everybody is going to be interested in the same things. And here's this thing about our community and how we could think about this. And I'm inviting you guys to think about this. We should find solutions together. Everybody who does this is very self-sufficient and very reliant on themselves and their knowledge, and they do create their personal theories about the world, and they went through this process. Everybody who's a music maker, a maker that does music, that knows how to do this. That's how they got here. So this is something easy for us to do, but it's not easy for everybody, and we have to find ways to design for it. And wide walls is that. So we should get, I guess, somehow kind of this mapping of many types of things that might interest people, and say, hey, if you want to do circuit bending, yeah, you have that, like you did a bit, like we do it on a building for sure at Music Maker Festival, Maker Music Festival. But there's also this idea that we have to kind of find different possibilities for them to get interest and to be very passionate. And besides, we have to kind of chop down the scaffold, this idea, so it could be easy. So this goes into this idea that was talked about earlier, that Joe was talking about, of having this kind of idea of a place where you have resources. And so we should definitely talk about that and be in touch with Anne-Marie. So this third P is about peers. And this is a crazy thing, because we do have this motto, do it yourself, but maybe we should kind of, it's cool, great, but maybe a better idea is like a make it together thing, because this is definitely something that helps people to go on to their creative flourishment. And so the next P is about play. And play is kind of misunderstood, because it's either too much or too little. Because too much, you say everything you could do is just, have fun, and you're playing and you learn a lot. And that's not actually true. I mean, there are types of playing that makes you learn much more than others. And this idea of too little play, we're talking about this idea that it works out for everything. If you make people play, so they're going to learn. Sure, that might not be true. And but it's also not true that if you don't provide some playful background, it's very hard to learn things. So we have to kind of dose that. So the best way of thinking about it is this attitude towards life. You have to be in this ludic mindset, and as I said, always design for it. Try to think of ways that could happen. So to wrap up now, really, I have to tell you about these dangers of just doing the design and less of the design. I mean, less about thinking about all this and how do we do this, is that we should be aware that not everybody, and this kind of goes against the common sense and a lot of mottos that have been around, not everybody is a hacker or a maker, like born with that. It's not really, people have studied it academically, and they say there is a very big demand for continuous accompaniment, and people have to be there for them to develop, and it has to be very intense, this sponsorship of time and mentorship, and especially because we have to guarantee some kind of equity towards gender and race and all minorities, that, and especially when we think about that, we really need special kind of ways of dealing with this. And this we also have to be aware of this. The other thing that was touched upon is this idea that work in progress is a great way of doing things. And work in progress is exactly a great thing to think about, because somehow, if you only try to show those shiny cases and like beautiful, that kind of intimidates people. Maybe it's also a frivolous use of technology without a social impact. And this is very important, as I have said, to me and to many people who think of education as a social positive impact. There are two other things, which is the complexity that we go through the maker things. If we don't, they only do this like a little after school thing, a museum thing. If it doesn't really go like a longer type of situation, like we're planning here at the Music Maker, at the Maker Music Festival, to stay there as a resource and kind of do continuous, it's not really effective. If it's too little complexity, and it's always introductory, so that's not too cool. And to finish up, it's kind of our duty as as people who are in this to occupy this space, because like there's this famous idea of, there's no free lunch. Politically, there's not also free unoccupied space. And if we don't do this, other people will, and they're going to probably do it in a way that's more commercial, and it's not as collaborative as we want it to be. So I invite you all to keep on chatting about this, and definitely we should be on, continue this on Discord to make this happen and occupy this space. So that's my invitation and my pitch to all you guys to come over and keep on doing this.
Great. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Daniel. And that is a reminder, we do have the EDU, #EDU channels on Discord. So thank you. You brought up a lot of great points. And I do think, that education is going to be important. And as we talked about this morning in an earlier session, we have a great tool with the Maker Music Festival platform. And I think we definitely have the talent, and I think we have your 4 Ps. So we have peers, we have a project, we have passion, and we have people. So, and play. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much.